So the next thing I want to talk about is imagery slash visualization. And I
Yeah.
will say I don't love these terms for this skill because they really tackle the idea of what you see. So imagining an experience that you can see. But as we know, the effectiveness of your visualization exercise is much more enhanced when you're imagining all of the senses because you're making the experience much more real and vivid and detailed. And that is basically just improving the effectiveness of this exercise. So I also call it mental rehearsal, but we're just going to be using all those terms
Great.
interchangeably.
Okay.
So the senses that I really find important to include in your visualization are the feel. So what that ball will feel like in your hands, what it feels like to execute the technique that you want to execute. And then the sounds. So like you said, sounds can be one of the biggest distractions at the line. So in this visualization exercise, imagining the sounds so that you're not processing new sounds, new information when you're actually doing the real thing because you already prepared through this
Right.
exercise. And then lastly, the sights. So this could be the sights of the hoop, what the background looks like as you're looking at this backboard. It could be looking at the rim, the netting, but also the crowd, not trying to ignore it necessarily, accepting that it's there. And again, preparing yourself in advance. So we're going to talk about visualization in two different ways. One way you can use imagery, visualization, mental rehearsal is before games. So you can use this exercise before games to improve your effectiveness with your free throw shot at the line.
Right.
John, do you want to talk about how players can use this exercise in maybe their pregame routine, or maybe it's just at home before they even leave for their game to improve their effectiveness later on in the day or night when they do step up to the line?
Yeah. Well, I think mental rehearsal is a habit. I don't think it's something that it's like, oh, hey, I mean, there are actual benefits, and we will talk about those, I think, later about like doing them like as I'm like at the line or stepping up to it, like kind of that quick reminder, right? Um, but mental rehearsal is a skill that we want to be practicing like consistently, whether we're in season or out of season. But just to go through, like you said, I love that idea of using all of those uh, different senses. And what I try to train or try to help athletes do is for each of those senses that are important to them, is finding like some cues in their routine, right? Like there's a reason why I dribble twice and then spin the ball is because as I dribble twice, I am not only creating like a feel cue, but I'm also creating an auditory cue. And so like as I bounce that ball twice and hear that twice, I'm reconnecting myself to the moment and to to the present. And then as I spin that ball, I'm like feeling the ball in my hands, right? Even just sitting here now, when I say that word, like like the ball, the feel in my hands, like I can feel it. It's almost like a little bit like phantom limb, syndrome or whatnot, where it's like, yeah, without moving my anything at all, I absolutely know what it feels like to hold a ball in my hands and like to feel my arm like go down and like up and release and like feel that weight like leave my hands. And so I think visualization, mental rehearsal is about creating some of these cues that are in your control. That's what I love about it. Is as I dribble the ball, like whether I dribble it twice or three times or 50 times, it's in my control, right? And so if there are times when I need to dribble three times because I need to, like I'm having a hard time eliminating those auditory distractions and I need to reconnect myself, like sweet, I can do that, right? And it's not like, oh crap, he dribbled three times, he's gonna miss. All I'm doing is I'm trying to recognize and lock in, the auditory sensation of this routine that I'm trying to get to get this space where I'm ignoring like I said, the auditory distractions and focused on the present. And so that's what I love is like as I am creating and as I am rehearsing as just as a habit, what I'm doing is I'm building like connections with these cues and building connections and like some uh, confidence as well as like some resilience to these cues that I know that like, hey, I can rely on this no matter what distraction is going to be in this game or in this situation. I'm developing like some confidence and experience identifying these, these different cues. Same thing like visually, like which part of the backboard do I want to be focused on? Which part of the rim, what I want the rotation of the ball to be at, and things like that. Like I create all of these different sensory clue or cues that I can practice, I can see, I can experience, I can hear while I'm sitting in the chair or laying in my bed, and so I think they just become habitual, right? And so I can do it before a game, and all I'm doing is just like reminding myself of these cues for me to pay attention to as part of my routine instead of their corresponding distraction.
And why this is so effective is a lot of athletes feel more confident when they have a plan as opposed to not really sure what to do. So by creating a plan in this visualization exercise, you are again feeling more confident. And part of that equation might be you are strengthening your connection to relevant and productive cues through rehearsing it ahead of time. And you're
Right.
also weakening the connection to ineffective cues like distractions and self doubt. And another element of this mental rehearsal process that I would encourage athletes to use is see themselves dealing with these ineffective cues and distractions. See yourself looking away from the rim and looking at this fan holding a sign and then coming right back to being confident, having great body language and focusing on your shot and making it. And similarly, in this exercise, see yourself thinking ineffectively and maybe having negative body language. And then again, doing what it takes to undo that ineffective mental game. And again, that is increasing your confidence to do what it takes at the free throw line when it's difficult to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really great idea, right? And if we're thinking about like doing this habitually, right, and I am doing visualization or mental rehearsal every single day, it's going to become harder for me if I'm creating the exact same image or creating the exact same scenario like over and over and over again, right? It's going to be good for me as I increase or add some novelty to it, right? So that I put myself through these scenarios like, hey, like what if I go play in that, like opposing gym, and what if I got shots, in the fourth quarter? What if my grandma makes it to this game, right? Like visualize or rehearse yourself like recognizing and accepting those distractions, like, so what do I want to do about it, right? And I love that question. It's become one of my favorite questions over maybe like the past like 2 months, is like, all right, so what are you going to do about it, right? That person is screaming, waving. There's a bunch of there's a whole row of frat guys, with the F word written across their chest, like, all right, so what are you going to do about it? Like, okay, it's become, like I said, it's become one of my absolute favorite questions to like bring myself back to like what's important now. Like, okay, so what are you gonna do about it? It's such a great question because, man, like, yeah, man, it's just so applicable,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, cool, great distraction. So what? Anyway, it's been awesome.
I love that. It's so good. And I love this stuff because a lot of times the answer is the same. You're still going to be going back to your refocus routine, the process, your breath. You could have 30 different distractions or obstacles that you ask yourself, okay, so what am I going to do about it? And it's going to be the same answer for a lot of them, which it's exciting. And
Mhm.
it's easier to feel confidence in your mental game. And I really love that idea of spicing up your mental rehearsal because I think many players might get bored of it feeling like the same thing, but it shouldn't. It should basically change on feeling what you need to visualize and feel more prepared for.
Right.
And what a great example of imagining different arenas or different types of distractions, different game settings of what's going on. That's awesome. I love it. Let's talk about doing this visualization at the line. So it's in that window of you were fouled and before you shoot. When
Mhm.
would you recommend athletes to do this visualization? I'm assuming they're at the line, they have the ball, or would you ever recommend them to do this when they don't have the ball yet?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because I think it changes on like the level or like or like wherever you're at. Like Steve Nash is a great free throw shooter for Dallas and the Phoenix Suns, and he's like in my mind pretty famous of he would like not would ask the ref to not throw him the ball, and he actually does that where he like does his like two, then he actually shoots without the ball. I think he does it like twice. And then he's like, okay, give me the ball, right? And then he gets it and he just goes through his routine and does it. So he's already seen it before he even like has the ball in his hands. A lot of athletes, in the NBA will like get the ball and they like hold it at their side and they like take a deep breath. And I imagine that's probably when most of it is going on. In high school ball, amateur ball, refs aren't going to be like they're not going to take too kindly of like, hey, like don't pass me the ball quite yet. Steve Nash is a Hall of Famer, and so probably got a little bit more grace than most of us would get in our rec league and whatnot. And so, but we all have the same 10 seconds, right? And so yeah, great thing. If you think about it, your routine is going to take. I mean, like even like Giannis, like the longest routine was like 8 seconds, right? Like it's not a long thing. So yeah, as I'm holding the ball, take a deep breath. And for me, I think we got to simplify. Like when we're in the game, when we're in competition mode, like we want to simplify. And in that regard, I think visualizing like truly like with our eyes is probably like the most important part. The most important sense is see myself shoot, see the rotation of the ball that I want, see that thing go in, right? And for me, I like have there's a little bit of kinesthetic too that as I'm like seeing that, like I know how I want it to feel coming out. And so I'm like, I'm trying to like get my body in that mode of feeling too. But yeah, I think that's probably what happens the most. But again, we want to simplify the line. There's so much going on. And so like we want to simplify and not feel like we have to do this laundry list of things to like be ready to shoot a free throw. And so I think we simplify, see ourselves do it like successfully, see that ball go through, and then I'm going to go through my routine and shoot.
Perfect. Yeah, great point of don't try and do everything in your visualization that you might do in your pregame routine. That's
Totally.
probably going to be a lot more detailed and in depth, and that's not necessary at the line. That can cause a sense of overthinking and trying to do too much and then maybe panic because it's taking too long. So yeah, great point there. The last thing I'll say on this skill of imagery is it's often paired with the breath because the effectiveness of this exercise is enhanced when you're in a bit more of a relaxed state.
Yeah.
So obviously you're not going to go from 160 beats per minute to 80 beats per minute with a breath and be like, okay, now my imagery is worth it. It's just going to be a bit more of relaxation that is facilitating the effectiveness of your mental skills. And everybody loves the phrase 1% better. So get 1% better in this exercise by pairing it with a breath if you find that's helpful and comfortable.